In-depth sports coverage from The Athletic is now just £1 a month with an introductory offer. See the link in the description to sign up. In the 2002-03 season, to protect the integrity of the game and after negotiations with the European Commission, FIFA introduced the compulsory transfer window. While media outlets have taken the term transfer window and added drama and razzmatazz to create off-season interest, the time frame is essentially a registration period where clubs are allowed to swap the registrations of their players for cash. This is why transfers can happen outside of the windows, but the players can only be registered within the specific time frame. The history of this can be traced back to the start of professionalisation in England, and a clause inserted into the FA's regulations in 1885 which required all players to be registered with the governing body in order to play in its competitions. These specific windows were brought in to prevent club hopping, the process of players signing for multiple clubs during a season, or joining a club just before a crunch game 2 days before the end of the season. FIFA recommends 2 transfer windows a season, one longer one between the end of one campaign and the beginning of another, and a short 1-month window in the middle of the season. It's up to the country's football association to set the specific dates. There are, however, exceptions to the concept of transfer windows. The most notable and divisive of examples is LaLiga's emergency transfer rule. Under La Liga rules, if a player is injured for more than 5 months, the club in question can apply to the league to sign a player under emergency conditions within 20 days of the injury occurring. This can be a player from another club in the top 2 Spanish leagues or a free agent. A medical commission then reviews the documentation of the injury and decides whether to grant or deny the request. If granted, the club would have to unregister the injured player to make space for the new signing and proceed to complete the transfer as usual. Now, while the regulation's intention might be good in terms of protecting clubs from inadvertent disaster, there are significant problems. Firstly, the rule doesn't state that the emergency transfer needs to play in the same position as the player who was injured. A good example of this was Celta Vigo in June 2020. Having lost their backup goalkeeper, Sergio Alvarez, to a meniscus tear, Celta were granted an emergency transfer and signed ex-Manchester City forward Nolito. The most substantial drawback, however, is the coupling of the rule with another relatively unique regulation to Spanish football, the legal necessity for a buyout clause in all player contracts, and the unequal consequences of this combination. This gives the more established clubs in Spain a big advantage. The explosion of wealth and inflation over the past 3 decades, coupled with RFEF and La Liga's historical appeasement of the Big Two, have led to Real Madrid and Barcelona becoming financial behemoths in comparison to the majority of teams who make up La Liga. If they find themselves in a situation to activate an emergency signing, they can essentially take their pick of the talent lower in the league due to the necessity of a buyout clause. This was perfectly exemplified by Barcelona in early 2020. The Catalan club were in the market for a forward in the January window thanks to Luis Suarez's knee injury, keeping him out for 4 months, and were hotly linked to Beijing Guoan's Cedric Bakambu and Valencia's Rodrigo Moreno. 2 young forwards, Carlos Perez and Abel Ruiz, were loaned out to help raise the funds for a replacement, although neither the Bakambu nor Moreno deal was completed. Just over a week after the closure of the January window, it was announced that Ousmane Dembele would be sidelined for 6 months after surgery on a serious hamstring tear, leaving Barcelona with just 3 forwards: Lionel Messi, Antoine Griezmann, and 17-year-old Ansu Fati. Barca applied for the emergency transfer on the 17th of February, and La Liga gave them the green light. In search for a short-term replacement, Barcelona landed on relegation-threatened Leganés and their star forward Martin Braithwaite. He had scored 6 of Leganés' 14 league goals at the time, 43%. And when Barcelona paid the €20 million buyout clause, Leganés were unable to sign a replacement. This added insult to injury. The small club on the outskirts of Madrid had already lost another striker to Sevilla when his buyout clause was activated in January. And by the end of the 1920 campaign, Leganés missed out on survival by a single point, while Barcelona threw away the title to Real Madrid, with Braithwaite scoring 1 goal in his 403 minutes. In hindsight, it was a deal without many winners. Now, after this particularly egregious case, both FIFA and the Spanish Football Federation lobbied La Liga to scrap the emergency signing rule. Shortly afterwards, however, Marca reported that the league authorities had voted to keep the rule, at least for the foreseeable future. And the debate continues. There is a motion to force clubs to actually agree fees in future for emergency transfers, removing their ability in that instance to activate release clauses. Actual legislative change is some way off though, and for now, this curious quirk of Spanish football remains. The Athletic is in-depth sports coverage that helps fans see the game from every angle. And Tifo is delighted to be able to offer full access to The Athletic now for just £1 per month. See the link in the description for details of this introductory offer. For football fans, that's access to the writing of journalists dedicated to your team, plus David Ornstein, Phil Hay, Daniel Taylor and many more. Not to mention over 400 full-time writers offering inside access and independent analysis of every team that you follow across every league that you care about. Get local expertise and unmatched league-wide perspective. The Athletic's writers are in the bubble, on the field and behind the scenes as it all happens. Catch up, go deep and join the conversation on the most important happenings in sports.